Welcome back to Polar Press Presents. I'm DW Sauer, and today I'm going to change things up. Instead of a reaction, I'm just going to talk about my experiences at some concerts and some bands that I had wanted to see, never got the chance to see, and then finally the opportunity of seeing them. So this episode of Raise Your Horns with me, I'm going to call Tales from the Pit. So today I'm going to look at two bands, Korn and Hatebreed. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Pembroke's own fellow YouTuber, author, Daniel Monroe. So I want y'all to go check him out, subscribe to his channel. He's got some great videos. He goes over a little bit of everything as well. And it's pretty awesome when he's got his gaming videos. He'll go and break down just some stuff in life. And it's pretty cool. Movies, all that. And I think you'll really enjoy it. And if you're an aspiring author, make sure you go check it out because he's got some amazing writing tips. He's also got a really great series called Beyond Fiction. Takes a little bit of everything in life. He goes over some natural accidents as far as natural disasters. Sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. And he also talks about some criminal activities and things like that. So it's really interesting. He's got some great videos. I think you'll enjoy it. But please make sure you go and subscribe to Pembroke's own author, Daniel Monroe. I'll put everything in the bio description of this video. I appreciate it. So first up is Korn. And Korn was a band that, surprisingly enough, reached our area. I don't even remember how it all happened because, like I said, growing up where I did, you didn't have a lot of exposure, but I remember a lot of friends really just were immediately drawn to Korn. And the first that I can remember with Korn was with the Life is Peachy album. That's when I start remembering the shirts and everything, and I didn't listen to that at the time. And I'm looking here just at the discography in the years. I do remember in high school, though, I did start to listen to them, and Issues and Fall Leader are the two I'm actually most familiar with. I did listen to those a lot, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Issues album was a fan art design, which I thought was really cool at the time. I could be wrong. That's how I'm remembering it in my head, is why that one really stuck out with me. But anywho, I might be wrong. So Korn was one that, like, I'm not going to say like I hate them at all or dislike them by any means. I do like listening to Korn, but they're not like heavy on my rotation. They were a band during that time frame and even up until now that I had wanted to see, and so I can at least say that. I think if I had to pick a favorite album, it would probably be just a tie between Follow the Leaders and Issues because those are the two I'm most familiar with. Those are the two I listen to the most. So, you know, it was something I just didn't have the opportunity to see Korn at any point up until I think maybe 2014, 15 or something like that. The first time I got to see them was in that year, couple years, whatever. Everything blends in together at this point. Even if I tried to script this out, I would probably be wrong on the dates. So my apologies. Went to a festival with my buddies. We kind of do this guys trip on a regular basis. So we went to a festival and they were there, and I really wanted to see them. But because of who was playing first on the other side of the grounds, we didn't get to Korn in time. They had previously seen Korn. I have not. So we didn't rush to get over there, and we probably should have because we were pretty far back. And it was just a sea of people, absolutely sea of people. And as soon as they started, the crowd went crazy. I mean, it was that concert experience you would be looking for. I mean, the energy level was just phenomenal. I mean, we were all packed in shoulder to shoulder. I think on average, it was like those festivals, over 100,000 people. And I would say that very few were not there. Like it just seemed like everybody was at that show. So it was amazing to have that experience just with that many people in that crowd. And then the downside quickly came with crowd surfers. You know, I know it's part of the experience, and I'm going to kind of show my age with some of the stuff, but like Korn was one I did want to see. And shortly, and I mean, it seemed maybe like less than 30 seconds, all of a sudden here come the crowd surfers. And you couldn't hear anything besides the music, and the crowd was going nuts and everything. And so all of a sudden we started getting pelted in the back of heads, like people just kicking us from from crowd surfing and everything. So we quickly had to like adjust the way we were, because like at this point nobody could give you like a heads up of who's coming or anything like that. So you had to really have your head on a swivel and just be on the lookout for crowd surfers. So I felt like even though I got this really awesome crowd experience, that first time I saw Korn, I didn't really get to see them, because we got to a point where we kind of standing sideways trying to check out to see who was coming from the back so we wouldn't get hit in the head or anything like that. And and so I would look and then look, and it literally head was on a swivel. So I don't feel like that first time I actually got to see them. So I told my buddies, if I get the chance to see them again, y'all can go in and do whatever. Y'all can get in the crowd and all that, but I'm going to be on the side. Like, I just want to be able to see a show. And, at this point, even then, which I'm thinking it's like going on about 10 years now, I just want to see these bands. Like, the point of me going to these festivals is seeing bands I never got a chance to see. Even though I live in an area now where within a couple of hours drive north or an hour drive south, I can end up seeing almost anybody on tour. They tend to come, like I said, 2 hours north or about an hour south. So it's not that bad now. Problem is just getting the time to be able to do that, right? So the next time I saw Korn, it was still at a festival, but it was the show I wanted to see the first time too. They are just great showmen. They have great energy. The sound was phenomenal as well. Sometimes at these festivals, especially when they're outdoors, that you can't, the audio is just not great. But they had them really tuned in where everything was just projected really well. The stage show was incredible. So with Korn, they're a band that I hope I get to see at least one more time, because it was that great of a show. And like I said, it was the crowd experience from the first time was something I was glad to be a part of. A little disappointed I didn't get to see enough of the show, but it was still fun. It was a good experience, but it wasn't as great as getting to actually see them perform. So when I'm going to do these Tales from the Pits, I'm going to look at like the energy level and just the show overall. And Korn is going to be, in the ranking system I'm going to use is just 3 lightning bolts. Keep it simple. And so they're a 3 lightning bolt. I mean, it was just one of the most energetic shows I have ever seen. It was one of the shows that I don't think, I take it back. I've seen other shows with a crowd that was that into it, but it just kind of seemed like the crowd at that show was almost a step above everybody else that I had previously seen. I mean, and I've seen some great shows, I've seen some great crowds, but just something about that show, they were just over the top. All right, so next up, we're going to do Hatebreed. So Hatebreed is a band that I had wanted to see for many, many years. And I'm going to say that I got to see them 2.25 times. Maybe it was, you can't really call it 2.5 times. And I'm going to explain why I say 2.25. So the first time I got to see Hatebreed was at a festival. And whoever did the set list for the bands, or I should say the time list for the bands, in my opinion, did a terrible job. I mean, there were so many good bands, and bands that I'm sure a lot of people were torn on who to get to see. And for me, at this festival, the hardest decision was, do I go see Testament or do I go see Hatebreed? And I ultimately chose Testament, because this was the first opportunity I had ever gotten to see Testament. And I didn't know if I'd ever get to see them again. I've been fortunate enough to where I have got to see them again, but I didn't know. And granted, this was the first opportunity I had to see Hatebreed. I didn't know if I'd ever get to see them again either. But when it came down to the two, I had to choose Testament, because Testament has always been a regular ever since I first heard them on my playlist. Like, they're always up there. And not to say that Hatebreed's not a regular, because they are. But it's just, this is one of our founding fathers, and I don't think Testament got enough credit throughout metal history. But that could just be me. That could just be my opinion. Whatever. So I went and saw Testament. But the good news about it was there was like I think like a 10 or 15 minute gap of when Testament started to compare to Hatebreed. Hatebreed came on just slightly later. So my buddy and I, we watched Testament. It was an amazing show. Loved it. Didn't disappoint by any means. But then we just booked it over to Hatebreed. Now, I remember Hatebreed was on the Jägermeister stage, and it was just a trailer that unfolded. It actually surprisingly had some really good sound. But, you know, the area that it was at was just, to me, a really terrible location. So by the time that we got there with the crowd that they had and where the stage was set up and the lay of the land, we couldn't even see the band. They were completely hidden from view. The trailer was out of sight. You couldn't see the trailer at all. And when we got up, we finally got there, it was a cloud of dust. The pit was just so intense up there that all you can see was just a tornado of dirt just swirling around. The sound was phenomenal. I think we at most we heard 3 songs, but those 3 songs were awesome. So I really can't count that I saw them to an extent, or I can at least say I saw them 0.25 times. But it definitely made me want to hopefully get to see them again, because like I said, it was still that great of a performance just for those couple songs that we did get to hear. And then I get to see them 2 more times at festivals later, and they don't disappoint. And I know the way these festivals are done, like, it's not a mystery that they want to make sure that they get the more popular bands to headline and things like that, because you're going to be drawing in crowds based off of their popularity. And I think Hatebreed's possibly underrated. We might be able to say that. And they shouldn't be. Every single time that they perform, their crowd, they bring the masses. I mean, I remember the second time I saw them, I was about midways up in the crowd, and by the time the set finished, when I turned around, I couldn't believe how many people. I mean, it was just, again, it was a sea of people. I mean, it was just loads of people that had came out to see them perform. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I could be remembering it wrong. But that's how I remembered it. It was just a lot more people than what I thought would be there. And so it was great to see. It really was. And every time that I've seen them, well, the 2 full sets that I've seen and that first 2 songs, it wasn't the same show. And that's what I think is great about the bands who perform live. You're not seeing the great show of the same show like that. And I know this is going to sound like a criticism, but when we've gone to these festivals, Shinedown has pretty much been at every single one. And they've either closed a night or they've been close to closing one of the nights. And I don't want to sound like I'm being negative towards them, because they have made their mark in history. They are highly successful. They've got a large following of people, and it's well deserved for their style of music. It's not for me. I don't care for it, but they have made it, and they've made their mark, and they're successful, and they're going to continue to be successful. But they're also more of a poppy rock sound, and so they're going to draw a more diverse crowd than what somebody like Hatebreed would. Unfortunately, Hatebreed's not going to appeal to the masses like somebody who has a pop rock or pop metal sound. And I don't even know if there's a genre of pop metal, but I think we really need to make sure we have that, because there's even some metal bands and even new metal bands that I think are more poppy than what they are metal, but whatever. That's just me. But every festival we've been at, the lead singer, Shinedown, has said, every time he's paused and interacted with the crowd, which is great, you interact with the crowd, it's just always been the same thing. And there will be one point, and this is not a word-for-word quote, but it's pretty much like this. He'll stop and say, I want everybody to look up at the stars. And then everybody looks up. And he's like, oh, you can't see them because they're all down here. But every time. And granted, they might play a few new songs or something like that when it comes out, but it's just, I get the vibe that I'm in the exact same show I was 2 years ago, a year ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It doesn't matter if I don't like a band or not, or listen to its music. I still think you owe it to your fans to do something different, to change things up, but whatever. The point of it is that Hatebreed was not the same. Granted, they have a large catalog of tunes that they can play, but I was never bored. I never felt like I was in the same show that I had previously seen. The energy that band brings is top notch. Jamie is one heck of a frontman, and I mean one heck of a frontman. The way he can get the crowd going, it's top tier, you know. And I know I had previously done a short on Hatebreed in one of the concerts. It was called I Spy, because you can see Randy in the background taking pictures. And I had some awesome comments about how great of a band they are, how great of guys they are. And, you know, that's pretty awesome too, that people have got these experience about like knowing the band and like just a good bunch of guys and things like that. And I mean, I know Jamie has podcasts and all that stuff and everything too, so you get to see more of what he's like outside the band. But, you know, that's also cool to hear, you know. And again, I'm going to go back. Shinedown might be some of the best guys in the world, and I don't mean any disrespect to them or mean to diss them or anything like that. It's just I have always felt like I'm in the exact same show with them. Didn't feel that way with Hatebreed. And the crowd with Hatebreed is top tier too. I mean, they're phenomenal. They always bring energy, and the pits are just crazy. They're outrageous with a Hatebreed show. And so to me, it's definitely a band that I'm going to go back and make sure that every festival lineup I can see them. I mean, as long as it doesn't interfere with somebody like Testament. And I do apologize, Hatebreed, but I hope you can understand it was Testament, and I needed to see them. So I got to say, I was impressed with Hatebreed every time. There's somebody I'm definitely going to want to see more and more, because their energy level, so we're going to get to our rating system here, is definitely 3 bolts. They bring it. The fans bring it. It's a great and unique concert experience, in my opinion, even at a festival. They definitely separate themselves from others performing. Phenomenal job by the band. Always a great sound. Always a great experience. And it's I mean, it's a pleasure. Plain and simple. Use some old school terms there. It's just a pleasure to get to see it. And I'm very fortunate I got to see it. And I highly recommend that you see them as well if you get the chance. Whether it is at a festival or whether it's on their own. If they come near you, go see them, because you will not be disappointed. They put on a heck of a show. So thanks for listening to my rambles about just my experiences and sometimes at these festivals and shows. This is something I'm going to not do every week or even frequently, but I'm going to do every now and again, just to kind of share some experiences and how I felt about some of these bands I've listened to for decades, some of the bands that I might have seen for the first time at one of these festivals. So I appreciate you for sticking around all this time, because it was a rather lengthy video this time. And if you are inclined to do so, please like and subscribe. At least subscribe. Helps me out a whole lot. Greatly appreciate you. If you are up for a good read, check out one of my books. That helps me as well. But thank you.